I remember the quote from Bill Russell: "Concentration and mental toughness are the margins of victory." For Pecco Bagnaia, those margins were crushed between red steel and politics. His concentration, smashed by Marc Márquez's arrival. His mental toughness, tested by Ducati for 11 straight months. They called him the champion who forgot how to feel. Every Sunday became an autopsy of front-end feedback and lost trust. And now, after a season of confusion, crashes, and public humiliation, the man who built the machine, Luigi Dall'Igna, finally admits Pecco was right. The GP25 was not a small step forward. It was a new direction with hidden consequences. Inside the garage, that admission lands like a grenade. Because if Pecco was right all along, who was wrong for 11 months? The rider or the factory that didn't listen? Comment your verdict below. Engineers or management who misread the truth? January 2025, Madonna di Campiglio. Ducati's winter launch looked like a coronation rehearsal. Marc Márquez walked in wearing the red suit that used to define Pecco's supremacy. Cameras loved it. Marketing teams built whole campaigns around it. And in that glow, Pecco smiled, politely, not comfortably. He had just come off a double title era and was supposed to begin his next dynasty. But behind the smiles, the GP25 was already worrying him. During Sepang preseason tests, he told engineers the front end felt numb, lacking connection in mid-corner. Telemetry didn't scream danger, so management shrugged. "You'll adapt." That sentence would haunt them all year. Qatar and Portimao came, and Marquez's adaptability overshadowed everything. Marc put the GP25 on the podium repeatedly while Pecco scraped for rhythm. Ducati PR pointed to data parity. The bikes are identical. But Pecco's hands told a different story. He felt a different steering pivot, different load feedback, different flex in the new frame. To him, every braking zone became a coin toss between belief and collapse. By Jerez, the contrast was public. Pecco spent hours buried in debriefs, chasing numbers that refused to match feeling. Marc needed 20 minutes and went out like a weapon. Pecco crashed mid-race, remounted, and salvaged 4 points, while his brother-in-red Alex Marquez took a shock win for Gresini. Inside Ducati, whispers began. Maybe Pecco's lost the edge. The whispers grew louder when the GP25's new aero and frame philosophy confused multiple riders. Fabio Di Gianantonio called it too nervous on entry. But Ducati doubled down. Data ruled over feeling. In engineering terms, it looked logical. In human terms, it dismantled the confidence of their reigning champion. So the question forms, when a factory has numbers and a rider has instinct, who carries the final word? Did Ducati trust graphs more than the man who gave them 2 world titles? The first half of 2025 was trench warfare. Marquez controlled the headlines, 5 wins in 6 rounds, a flawless adaptation that made the GP25 look divine. Bagnaia, meanwhile, looked trapped inside his own telemetry sheets. At Mugello, home soil turned into irony. The GP25 refused to turn in mid-corner the way the GP24 did. Pecco's entry speed dropped by 0.2, front tire temperature soared. Engineers kept telling him to brake deeper. He told them the bike wouldn't hold. The compromise turned into a near high side and a P7 finish. Ducati's response? The 25 has more potential. We just need time. Time is something you never get in a championship. By Sachsenring, the pressure had become visible. Marquez rode like gravity obeyed him. Bagnaia fought a bike that felt alien under the same logo. Reporters framed it as mental weakness, not mechanical mismatch. Every comment cut into his reputation. Pecco's cracked under Marquez pressure. Then came Motegi. Out of nowhere, Ducati gave him GP24 spec parts, frame, and geometry under the radar. Instantly, the feel returned. He took pole, sprint win, and Sunday victory. That weekend screamed Vindication. For the first time since Valencia 2023, Bagnaia's style matched the machine. But celebration inside the garage was awkward. Because the success came on parts from last year's philosophy, the one management had abandoned. 2 weeks later, Mandalika reset the pain. Same setup, same confidence, yet a racing incident with Marco Bezzecchi ended it early. Pecco remounted from the gravel, the rear tire half destroyed, and still tried to salvage points before finally withdrawing. Phillip Island, another disaster. A cold track, unstable front, and the same feedback issue. He crashed out again. The world saw statistics. We saw the same pattern he warned about in February. Sepang was supposed to be redemption. Ducati reverted to the original preseason setup. Pecco took pole, won the sprint, and led the main race until a rear tire puncture ended everything 3 laps from the end. In raw numbers, 2 wins, several DNFs, and a mental toll no data sheet could capture. Inside the garage, his engineer shouted after Sepang, We told them this configuration works." The paddock echoed that sentiment, yet Bologna stayed silent. So we ask as engineers, why did it take 10 months, countless crashes, and one public humiliation after another before Ducati admitted the GP25 path was flawed? Was Marquez's success masking design weaknesses that only Pecco could feel? By late season, Ducati's dominance looked like a one-man empire. Marc Márquez was walking toward a record-breaking title, while Pecco drowned in self-doubt and media fatigue. Every time Pecco spoke about front feeling, it sounded like an excuse to the outside world. But inside the garage, we knew it was code for unfiltered feedback the factory refused to believe. Pablo Nieto publicly said Bagnaia was wrong, that the bikes were not so different. Dall'Igna backed that narrative at first, calling the GP25 a refinement. That alignment effectively silenced the rider who built their modern dynasty. Pecco's body language told the rest. He stayed quiet in press conferences, stopped defending himself online, and started watching Marc's data traces, not out of curiosity, but necessity. Because if the same bike behaved differently, either the chassis lied or someone's adaptation curve was inhuman. Engineers inside Ducati started running quiet comparisons. The GP25's frame stiffness index and flex pattern had indeed shifted slightly, enough to alter load distribution on corner entry. It wasn't massive on paper, but for a rider built on front-end trust, it was everything. That data finally reached Bologna by mid-August, yet no public correction followed. They needed the title first. Then came Misano, the symbolic home circuit. Pecco looked lighter, but the bike still punished him. Marc dominated. Pecco finished outside contention. After the race, in the debrief, one line cut the room cold. "Maybe it's not me who changed." Nobody answered. And now, after Misano, after Mandalika, after the body language turned into silence, Dall'Igna finally breaks the wall with Speed Week. He admits Pecco's theory was correct. The GP25 had indeed taken a different path, subtle but significant. The frames, the fairings, the evolution choices. What Pecco felt in February, the factory confirmed in November. That confession rewrites the whole narrative. It wasn't the rider who lost the touch. It was the company that stopped listening. So we ask again, did Ducati hide behind Marc's results to protect its new design philosophy? If the GP25 was fine, why did it need GP24 parts to win Motegi? If Pecco's feedback was wrong, why did Gigi's own words prove it right? We built this bike with our hands. We saw the sensors. We know what changed. Why did no one upstairs admit it when it mattered? Let's strip it down to engineering facts. Frame and geometry. The GP25 introduced subtle changes, revised stiffness around the headstock, minor swing arm angle adjustments, and an aero package designed to enhance acceleration stability. Result: increased front load under braking, but reduced mid-corner compliance. For Marquez, who brakes late and forces rotation with rear-wheel slides, the balance suited him. For Bagnaia, who relies on early braking stability and precise apex control, it destroyed feel. The mismatch wasn't talent, it was architecture. Electronics. The GP25 software revisions improved traction control mapping, but delayed throttle pickup in early acceleration phases. Again, Marquez's on-off aggression compensated. Bagnaia's progressive throttle style suffered. Psychology. Pecco's confidence loop depends on repetition. Lap consistency builds trust. Trust builds pace. Once front feedback vanished, every lap became a guess, not a plan. That psychological drain can't be logged by sensors. Media optics. Ducati couldn't publicly concede design error while chasing a title with another rider, so Pecco carried the blame quietly. By the time Dall'Igna spoke, the damage was already historical. And yet, within that wreckage lies the biggest revelation of the season. Bagnaia was not defeated by speed, but by structure. He was overruled by data politics, the silent war between numbers and instinct. Marc Márquez proved his alien adaptability again, but even he privately admitted preferring the GP24's base characteristics. That sentence alone should haunt the engineers' meetings. The final 2 rounds, Portimao and Valencia, will close the book statistically, but morally, the chapter is already written. Pecco will ride with Nicolo Bulega beside him, a reminder that the next generation enters while his own trust in Ducati hangs by bolts and signatures. So, after 11 months of contradiction, we gather the evidence and ask the questions Ducati never answered. Why was the GP24 geometry abandoned when it delivered stability across all riders? Why did Bologna's management need Marquez's dominance to validate a bike that Pecco and Dall'Igna both called unpredictable? Why did Gigi wait until November to admit design deviation? If Pecco's instincts match the data now, who will apologize for labeling it rider weakness? And when the next evolution begins, whose feedback will they believe? The numbers or the heartbeat of the man on the bike? This wasn't just a season, it was a lab experiment in human endurance. A double world champion stripped of authority, a factory blinded by its own success, and a confession that arrived 11 months too late. Pecco Bagnaia ends 2025 with 2 wins, several DNFs, and one eternal truth. The machine obeys physics, but victory obeys trust. And trust, once broken, doesn't return with a press release. The engineers inside the red walls will remember this year, not for titles, but for silence. Because silence costs them a champion's faith. So, Ducati, next time a rider says, "I can't feel the front," believe him before you build a new one. Drop your verdict in the comments. Did Ducati sacrifice loyalty for pride? Subscribe for more raw breakdowns. We're not done until the last bolt tells the truth.